I call this House to order and call on the Registrar Elizabeth McBride to read the minutes of our last public business meeting.
An ordinary public business meeting of the University Philosophical Society was held on Thursday the 21st of September with President Con McCarrick in the chair. I know a lot of us here will have quite different opinions on things tonight, and this week I was trying to think of something that we could all maybe try to take a united front on. I think we can all agree on the fact that people, and I mean like fine, able-bodied people who take the library elevator up to any floor below Usher 4 are the fucking scum of the earth. I swear to God, if you're the kind of sick fuck who'll get in the lift with me and press the button for the 3rd floor, when I've already pressed the button for the 4th floor, I want you to get the fuck out of this room right this minute. But Kevin Keane, I've seen you do this before. Sit and enjoy this debate, Kevin Keane, you sick fuck. I genuinely think we should all be refocusing our energies on repealing those people from my immediate vicinity. No one ever dare get in a list with me and get to go to any floor besides Usher 4 if I'm already going to Usher 4. I'll actually fucking deck you. But in no further business, the meeting adjourned.
Are there any objections to me signing these minutes as a true and accurate reflection? There being none, I'll sign. So the motion this week is this House believes the repeal campaign should reject respectability, and we're delighted to be working with TCD SU as part of their Empowerment Week for this debate. It's an important debate for many people in this room on a particularly sensitive topic. So, and for speakers on both, it's important that speakers on both sides are allowed to participate fully and fairly in this debate. So with this in mind, I'm going to go through some standing orders for the debate. Speeches are a maximum of 10 minutes for guests and 7 minutes for student speakers. After the first minute and before the last minute of each speech, there'll be a bell, which signifies that members of the audience are allowed to offer points of information. It's at the speaker's own discretion whether or not they accept this point of information, so if you are rejected, we'd ask you to please sit down. Anyone who's continually disruptive on either side will also be asked to leave the chamber. It's important that speakers on both sides are able to say their piece, so I'd ask speakers and audience to be respectful of that and of the standing orders for this debate. If I could draw all your attentions to the archery returns on your seat, that outlines the speaking order for this debate. There's one slight change on the opposition side, so Niamh Herbert is still speaking first, but Niamh Eggison will now be speaking second. So then Cora Sherlock is third and Roisin Ingle is now fourth. Basically, please fill those out during the debate and that they go towards the gold medal of archery for our student speakers, so, and hand them towards Kate and Umang at the end of the debate. So to introduce the speakers for tonight's debate, on proposition we have Saoirse Ryder, Alva Smith, a convener of the Coalition to Repeal the 8th campaign, Katie O'Brien and Claire O'Nulon. And then on opposition we have Niamh Herbert, Niamh Eggison, Cora Sherlock, spokesperson for the pro-life campaign, and Roisin Ingle, an Irish Times journalist. So without any further ado, I call on Saoirse Ryder to open the case for the proposition. Hear, hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to get to speak on this issue, an issue that resonates with me and so many others so deeply. An issue which for 34 years was cloaked in taboo. For 34 years was pushed to the fringes of social dialogue in this country. And now, after 34 years, we can finally have an open conversation about it. But the problem is that the opposition are attempting to dictate how we have that conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, the crux of the motion lies on the definition of respectability. The opposition's idea of respectability sees the repeal campaign toning down its message, neglecting its unique, emotive and fiery means of campaigning in order to appear more palatable to their opposition or to have a better chance of swaying the middle ground. But repeal refuses to be chained by their idea of respectability, when what is and isn't respectable is only decided by our current laws and current mindsets of some people. It was once disrespectful for men to hold hands in public. The repeal campaign has its own idea of respect, and that is an endurance in our beliefs, a refusal to compromise what we stand for, and it is because of that that we are not about to allow opposition to dictate the confines of the conversation that for so many years we were pushed out of in the first place. Because it is time for the dialogue to be dictated not for us but by us. So why do we reject respectability? Because we aren't afraid to. We don't feel cautious to agitate against the status quo of a society who put the women of Ireland in such a precarious position in the first place. Because it's an insult to ask the women of Ireland to waste time being palatable when at least 12 of us every day already have to leave the country to seek fundamental health care. Because it's an insult to expect us to go begging to the government cap in hand for our rights and expecting them to throw us a bone if we ask nicely. And what's more, we reject your respectability because we know it won't work. It hasn't worked for the last 34 years because conventional campaigning only ever gets you conventional responses. And if our words and our actions go against the status quo, then fantastic, because the status quo is a mundane political normality that keeps issues like this trundling along in the background. When the government has already flatly ignored the recommendations of the Citizens' Assembly in 2013, we call that political procrastination at its finest. When the only response that ordinary political pressure will get you is the mutterings of, well, it's not a black and white issue, is it? We say that that is not good enough. When the Irish government won't even listen to experts, do you really think that all a working class, marginalised woman who is invisible to our statistics really needs is a dash of respectability for her to be able to raise her head above the parapet and be heard? So it is simply not in the interest of the Irish political system to put abortion on the table themselves. So we, the women of Ireland, put it there ourselves. We march, we strike, we share our horrifying personal stories about abortion, and we reject your respectability. It's the only reason that we as a Repeal movement should become more respectable is to convince people at our side. When it comes to pro-life supporters, the issue of an abortion is split over a moral debate. No matter how rational or toned-down Repeal can try to be with them when discussing the possibility of a repeal, this is an issue that is steeped in morality for them, and they are not going to let go of their convictions, no matter how hard you try to respectably convince them otherwise. They will still just think you're killing babies. Their deeply personal beliefs will take priority. It's probably what they've always valued. And it's easier to stay settled in your values than try to reform them. If they're religious, it's even harder because their views on life beginning at conception is a conviction they'll always hold on to. And in a country that is still so bound by the conservative views of the church, it's unclear to me how wasting time being respectable and palatable could ever benefit us in convincing people with such strong convictions as these. Equally, Repeal shouldn't have to waste time trying to be palatable to centrists in the middle ground. They don't need a toned-down message, they need their cages rattled. Centrists are centrists because they're comfortable on the fence, and having a respectable dialogue with them will never change that. Because there's some things you just can't rationally convince someone of. People only change the way they think when their belief systems are shook and shattered. When we, the women of Ireland, reject your idea of respectability, when we scream about our cause, and when we bring it out onto the streets where no one can ignore it. Because when, yes, I'll thank you.
If we fight this debate on emotive grounds, we legitimise the other side in fighting them on those grounds too. At that point, it's impossible to talk about anything in a sensible manner, and we can't win over anyone else. Do you agree?
It's an interesting point, but I believe that you can't break down the master's house with the tools that the master used to build it. When rational and respectable discourse fails to get you anywhere, what you should do instead is completely reject those ideas and be willing to use non-respectable means to fight for your cause. And yes, that could isolate some people in the middle ground, but it could appeal to them too, to show them that you as a human being are willing to go to extreme lengths for something so fundamentally important to you. And if again that doesn't work, that doesn't even matter, because gaining that incremental support from centrists is not the focus of Repeal. Yes, it might be nice to increase the 55% of the country that already back Repeal, but the focus of Repeal is enacting actual political change. And the only way to do that is by having massive, radical demonstrations, by going on strike, by doing whatever we can to keep the government's attention on us for as long as we can. When an issue is about a fundamental right, it's inherently radical, and it deserves nothing less other than radical action. No successful civil rights campaign has ever been won by being respectable in order to appease the opposition. See Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. See the marriage equality campaign being headed by a drag queen named Panty, not a TD from Roscommon with a gay neighbour. There are only so many issues we can get that bland TD from Roscommon to back, and we don't think women's reproductive rights is that issue. Because you just don't get radical change by being palatable enough to get Joe down the road to change his mind. You get it by forcing abortion into the forefront of the public dialogue. A dialogue which is already so stacked against women, it puts them in a position where a conversation is being had about them and not with them. When women's lives are being threatened every day under Irish law, I put it to the opposition to attempt to explain to you all tonight why it is okay for women to waste their already precious time working on making themselves sound a bit more palatable so that they can sway that conservative man who will always just think you're a murderer, wasting time sounding respectable to a near empty doll who will always push it down the envelope for as long as they can. When each day means so much for the women of Ireland, I put it to the op to please explain to you why being seen as respectable matters more than letting the women of Ireland have their own conversation. Because if being respectable means compromising on my right to bodily autonomy, then I'm going to be proud to be the most disrespectful woman they've ever met.
We thank Saoirse for her excellent speech, and just a reminder to fill out the ORs as you go. And then next up we have Niamh Herbert from the opposition. Here, here.
Okay, so provide or pro-choice? That is the question. Question I don't properly know how to answer myself. I became aware of the abortion rights campaign in 2013 when I was still in secondary school and wasn't using a wheelchair. And I've always been somewhat wary of the implications of repealing the 8th Amendment, but I always considered myself to be pro-choice. In 2016, I started to become more and more involved with advocating for disability rights and became more aware of the eugenics associated with abortion. As I looked further and further into the rights of those with disability, I saw a direct contradiction in my beliefs. How can I be both pro-choice and a disability rights activist when the eradication of disability from our society is aided by the pro-choice movement in Ireland? The disability right I'm referring to is like the right to live. Agree with me or not, but there are facts and figures showing that fetuses with disabilities are being denied life on the basis that they have a disability. Sorry, I'm trying not to get too emotional about this, but it's not working already. So, and while I do believe in abortion in most of the situations, this is where I draw the line. I think that, I agree with abortion if a woman becomes pregnant and is immediately unhappy with the pregnancy and decides to abort. It's her right, it's her choice, and I completely agree with everything the pro-choice movement says on that issue. But when a woman finds out she's pregnant and is happy with that, and then only when she finds out that the child will be born with a disability, and she decides to abort it, I have a problem with that, and it upsets me for pretty obvious reasons. I often wonder, would I have been born if I lived in a world where abortion would be legal? And I think, why is living with disability so bad that the pregnancy just needs to be terminated? It's people in the pro-choice camp who say things like, the disabled child would be a burden to their mother, that are partially the reason why I feel like my life is so worthless, for want of a better word. I feel guilty constantly for being a burden to my friends and my family. I wonder, would they just terminate my life to make it easier if it was legal to do so? But of course, this debate is not trying to sway you to one side of the argument or the other. Because I don't even know where I stand. Here we're talking about respect. And the abortion rights campaign directly disrespects disability rights. It tells me that it's a mother's option to be able to decide whether or not a disabled life is worth living, not the choice of the person themselves. So, do I personally respect repeal? No. Memorably, I once spoke with a member associated with the repeal campaign. I won't name names, But basically they said to me that risking disability rights is just the price that we women have to pay in order to gain our bodily autonomy. And I have so many problems with that, and I won't explain, but if you don't see how wrong and hurtful that is, then you're a huge part of the silent stigma against disability that makes women want to abort their children. So on the abortion rights campaign website, it says that abortion due to disability or serious illness in the fetus is rare. And the statement is just untrue. It's not true. And I did extensive research on this subject, and basically around 84% of pre-birth diagnosis of Down syndrome in fetuses ended in termination between 2008 and 2012 in England and Wales. 84% isn't rare, and I think most people will agree. As well as this, there is a 100% abortion of fetuses with Down syndrome in Iceland. A child with Down syndrome has not been born there in 5 years. These are legitimate facts. So, I have one question. It's not rhetorical. So I asked anyone on the bench and in the audience, how can they ignore the eugenics going on behind the scenes, the abortion rights campaign, and how can that be tackled? Okay, so in advocating for the rights and choice of women, the rights and lives of other minorities, the disabled are being infringed on. So basically, congratulations to the Repeal campaign. To advocate for the rights of women, you have successfully alienated the disabled community from our rights. Why are we even debating this? Because they've obviously already lost respectability. However, it's not too late, and I urge anyone listening or watching to consider the right in a respectful way to conduct themselves for the referendum sometime next year. In order to reach a harmonious conclusion, we must all ask, talk, listen, and respect each other. Is it really a successful way for women's rights if it cares of the rights under the bus? Respect is important, so please oppose this motion.
We thank Niamh for her fine speech, and next up we have the convener of the Coalition to Repeal the 8th Amendment, Alva Smith.
Good evening. Sheila Hodgers died 19th of March 1983. Her cancer treatment was withheld so as to protect the fetus due to the catheter ethos of the hospital. Her husband Brendan said, "I went to see Sheila one night and she was in absolute agony. She was literally screaming at this stage. I could hear her from the front door of the hospital. I saw the sister and she produced a doctor who said nothing that made any sense. Brendan requested an abortion, induction or cesarean, and was refused because he was told the baby would not survive. On 17th of March, Sheila Hodgers gave birth in extreme agony to a baby girl who immediately died. She herself died 2 days later from cancer in her neck, spine, legs, liver and ribs. Michelle Hart died 2012. Michelle became unintentionally pregnant while suffering from a malignant melanoma. Doctors advised an abortion because of the risk to her health. Although her obstetrician was willing, he said he was hamstrung by legal issues. Michelle's abortion in the UK was delayed as a result by several weeks. Later, although terminally ill, she bravely spoke out, sued the state, and was given compensation. She died not long after. Savita Halappanavar died 28th of October 2012, despite repeated requests by herself and her husband, refused a termination during an inevitable miscarriage in the 16th week of her pregnancy because a fetal heartbeat was detectable. Still in hospital, she died of sepsis a week after miscarrying. Ms. Y, a young asylum seeker from a country in Africa, discovered soon after she arrived in Ireland that she was pregnant as a result of a rape in her country of origin. She repeatedly requested an abortion during the first months of her pregnancy, but was refused. Eventually, and following a hunger strike, Ms. Y was forced to have a caesarean section at 24 weeks. The baby is now in care. Its capacity and health are known. Ms. Y is taking a civil case. At least 170,000 women have been forced to travel abroad, mainly to Britain, for an abortion since the 8th Amendment was inserted in the Constitution just 34 years ago. That's 10 or 12 women every day. Unknown numbers of women who could not have the abortion they needed also exist because they hadn't the money to travel. This is a class issue. Because they didn't have the childcare, the majority of women who have an abortion already have children, couldn't get the time off work, or perhaps, with honour to Neil, perhaps because they have a disability. It is also true that women who have disabilities seek abortions, and that they would not be able to arrange suitable travel, or perhaps because the woman is a migrant without any certain legal status and doesn't dare to travel. This is because our abortion law, one of the strictest in the world and dramatically out of line with European norms except for Malta and Poland, it prohibits abortion except to save a woman's life, and even then it does not always do that. Ireland pretends abortion doesn't happen, that it isn't necessary, it isn't part of women's everyday reality. But these stories, these figures are the reality of abortion in Ireland today, and they're a terrible indictment of the injustice and cruelty of our treatment of women. But of course, Ireland has plenty of form in this regard. The Magdalen laundries, 30,000 women immured in institutions because they fell pregnant outside marriage or were otherwise considered to be fallen women, worked like slaves in laundries run by religious orders. Or what about the 2,000 banished babies, the unmarried women sent to mother and baby homes, also run by these religious orders, where their babies were taken from them and exported for sale, for adoption, usually in the USA, without consent or proper documentation. The mass baby graves, I hardly need to remind you, discovered recently in the graveyard of a mother and baby home in the west of Ireland. 796 corpses of babies were unearthed. The 1,500 women who it is estimated were unknowingly, without consent, subjected to the brutal procedure of episiotomy during childbirth from the mid-1940s to the mid-1990s. History is not a safe place for women in this country, but neither is the present a safe place for women of childbearing age. These are the indisputable facts of the matter, and what stands out over and over and over again is the lack of respect for women, lack of respect for our rights, for our needs, for our health, for our safety, for our well-being, as women, as mothers, as people in the world. I grew up in that cold, cruel Ireland, unforgiving, judgmental, sanctimonious, and punitive. It was the reason I became a feminist. Treated, because I was treated, along with other women, of course, as a second-class citizen, as a woman, with inferior rights and limited freedoms, deprived of agency over that core central part of my being, which is my body, including my reproductive body. I was invisible as a lesbian. I was unspeakable as a pro-choice activist, campaigner, and advocate. I was not respectable. That's why I have very little truck actually with respectability, because what counts for me, what really matters, is respect, dignity, autonomy, and honesty. What matters to me is that we should honour the values and principles that certainly I think we cherish in our heads, such as justice and equality, like kindness, compassion, generosity, understanding, care, that we don't deny, bury or hide or fudge the truths and the realities of our lives, however difficult, untidy or messy or even unpalatable. They are the truths and the realities of our own lives as women. I believe that we must campaign vigorously, with courtesy certainly, calmly certainly, but we must be firm and we must use all the means at our disposal, because we have to remove from our Constitution a clause which endangers and harms our health and well-being and deprives us of that fundamental right to bodily integrity and autonomy, which so profoundly disrespects people. No, thank you. I believe we must remove a clause which causes profound suffering and distress for some, thinking of couples who have a fatal fetal anomaly diagnosis, and practical difficulties and stress for so very many women over so very many years. I don't want that for my daughter, and I certainly don't want it for my granddaughter. Women matter. Our lives and our health matter. We are entitled to care and respect, not to be treated as non-people, as vessels and containers to do some kind of duty for the nation. That is not who we are or should be. We are full people. We have a chance to move beyond that now, no thank you. To move beyond that shaming history and harmful precedent, to make laws which honour, support and care for women at a time of particular need and vulnerability, which is what you are when you're pregnant. To come out into the open and acknowledge in our laws and in our health services that abortion is that reality in the lives of women. It can happen in any life. That it doesn't disappear simply because some people would like it to disappear. Bad laws do not stop women from seeking abortion. They just make it horrendously difficult and distressing. We can, and I believe we are, organising to change this creatively, dynamically, massively, all around the country. I really have no idea if we're doing it respectably or not, and I absolutely do not care. Nothing which would be more respectful of women, of people, of the country we live in, and the values that we hold, than to reject this detrimental, harmful, dangerous 8th Amendment. Thank you all very much.
We thank Alva for her fine speech, and now just to remind you about the change to the opposition order. So next up is Niamh Eggleston. Hear, hear.
Ladies and gentlemen of the University Philosophical Society, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine being the first student who has to follow that. But I will. I'm 16 years old and I'm sitting in my music class. I'm in TY and my friend Sophie is livid about the death of Speech Health Albert, and she's right to be. But at the time I don't really understand it, and I've asked my mum about it, and she's a midwife, and she takes no nonsense, and all she can say to me is that it's complicated. I'm 17 and now I'm in 5th year, and I'm walking through the corridor of the same school. And I overhear girls in the corner, and one of them says that she's going to sit in a warm bath with a bottle of vodka and hope for the best. And I know immediately what she's talking about, and so do you. I don't have to go home and ask my mum. I'm 19 years old and I'm in 1st year of university, and my friend thinks she might be pregnant. Her period is late. The boy has left. We don't know where he is. Her parents are evangelical and they won't accept her and they won't accept what she's done. All that my government can do is direct me to a counselling service and give me the number and the link to the Ryanair website. I'm 22 and I'm sitting in a law lecture, and the names and the letters keep coming. Miss X, Miss Y, Miss A, Miss B, Miss C, Miss D. The Amanda Mallets, the Savita Halpanathers, the names I know, the names I don't know. The women who are forced to make callous journey and face trial by water by a government that won't look them in the eye, and the women who weren't even lucky enough to make it to the boat. It's funny how in this country we think of the exiled as the fortunate. I think of these 4 things, and I think of these experiences that we all share as women in this country, and I know 4 things to be true. I know that first of all, none of this should be shocking to you because this is the lived reality of every single woman in this country and every single person who can fall pregnant. I know that secondly, women are suffering in this country and that 8 to 12 of us every day are forced across the sea, and some of us don't make it. I know that the only way to end these things and end these experiences is to repeal the 8th Amendment. I know that we have waited 35 years for this, and I will not see us wait 35 more. I will not see 35 more years of women face this trial. And fourthly, I make this argument with no great pleasure, because my heart is on your side, but my head is on the side that ends the fight quickest, and the fight that lets us win. First of all, I want to say a few things to Saoirse with great respect, because I thought she was great. First of all, I think that people are on the fence about this, and when she says that 55% of people back repeal, they back repeal now when there has been no mudslinging, and they back repeal when the issue is clear and hasn't been obfuscated by the other side, a side which has to dodge facts, but we'll get to that later. I'll tell you also that the marriage equality referendum was an incredibly conservative campaign during which people were asked to conceal certain aspects of themselves. That was unconscionable, and I don't want to ask women to do this here, but I do think there has to be a way in which we tailor our message, and there has to be a way in which we have a targeted and controlled campaign in order to win. I think the issue is misidentified once more because this is no longer about rattling the cage of the government. A referendum is clear. This is about winning over Joe Soap down the road, because Joe Soap holds my rights in his hands. And I'm sorry that I have to go and beg at his table, but for as long as I am begging, I want to win and I want to get something out of it. The starving have characterise Joe Soap down the road. Who is he? Who's he going to vote for? I talk about his education. He may have gone to a CBS. He's been raised in a Catholic faith all of his life. He's told by his age, by his culture, that abortion is wrong, and he's unsure of where he sits on the issues. He may have heard certain things and have legitimate fears about it, and legitimate questions. He's heard the stats that Nice tells him, and the pro-life campaign tell him, well, absolutely, it's eugenics. Instead of saying, this is a conversation separate to abortion that we need to have about how we value people with disability in our society in the first place. They're separate. He may have ethical fears and concerns about the level of abortion. They've used terms like abortion on demand, as though I can go and get one from a vending machine and don't think about these things at all, right? They use late-term abortions as a scapegoat, as though a woman who has carried something in her room for 8 months suddenly doesn't care anymore and it isn't an immense tragedy. They use these words to obfuscate and prey on the fears that those people have. These are not true. The most powerful thing that we have on our side and pro-choice side is clear facts. We have the ability to sway those people to our side, because those people also know certain other things to be true. As much as they fear late-term abortion, they know it's wrong to force a pregnant woman to undergo a caesarean section when she doesn't want to. They know it's wrong to keep the corpse of a woman animated to act as some sort of grim, more incubator for a fetus that no longer lives. They know those things to be wrong, and we can reconcile the irreconcilable to them. We can give them choice, but only if we have space to talk about facts and confront those fears honestly and respectfully. right? We can explain them away. This is what happened in the marriage equality referendum, and this is why the Citizens' Assembly worked so well, because naturally people don't want people to suffer. They are on our side, they just need to be convinced. Why won't they allow this in the way that they say they will? Because inflammatory language will beget more inflammatory language. The more we legitimise the anti-choice campaign in using the word murder, the more we scream things like, you don't care if women die, as much as we may think it to be true, it means that they can come back with the same mudslinging. It changes the conversation. It means the conversation is no longer about what is the best healthcare we can provide to women and what suffering are we undergoing. It's who slung more mud at who. It's who tore down more of whose posters. It's whose freedom of speech is being impinged on more. And suddenly we're not even having a conversation anymore. And suddenly the facts are obfuscated. And suddenly they can tell you that they're baby killers and you will believe it. They can throw around words like eugenics. And people who are unsure will vote for the status quo because they know that right now it's kind of fine and nobody's house is being burned down. That's not true. But they will vote against that change anyway, and that is what I fear. The women of Ireland have waited too long for this. I will not see them wait any longer. This is not about how we best express ourselves. This is about how we win. This is a political campaign, and it needs to be treated as one. I would rather win a dirty war than lose a perfect battle. For all of those reasons, I'm a little bit proud, but mostly I feel it's necessary to oppose. The motion falls.
We thank Niamh for her fine speech, and next up we have Katie O'Brien. Katie, as this is your first time speaking in the chamber, you are afforded what are called maiden's rights, and you can choose to keep them or you can choose to waive them and receive a rapturous round of applause.
I'll waive them. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Katie and I have two arguments in this debate. The first being the issue of telling women they must be respectable, and then just why the Repeal campaign is so important that a rejection of respectability is necessary. So we all know the only way to make progress is to make noise, and we make noise by not being respectable. By not following the status quo and being a little outrageous, attention is drawn to these claims causes. Being disrespectful is just another form of broadening the campaign's reach and provides a surge in interest to the movement. Also, as a side note, I'd like to say at the outset that obviously when we talk about people availing of abortion, we're not only talking about those who identify as women, we're talking about anyone who is able to get pregnant, be that a trans man, cis woman, or someone who identifies as gender fluid. We are all fighting for rights over our bodily autonomy together. So, what is this word respectability, and why is it important in this debate? There is this patriarchal expectation for women to be respectable. Women must be kind, gracious, compassionate, homely, charitable, selfless, good-hearted, gentle, respectable. This is an archaic and unjustifiable view that feminism aims to quash. There is this omnipresent internalized misogyny in all of us because of how we've been taught to act as women from such a young age. How many times have you heard the saying, little girls should be seen and not heard? Or even telling a young girl to not be so bossy, to hold her tongue, to smile and nod. These sayings that we've all grown up with are so harmful to young girls when forming views of society and how they should act and what they should be aiming for in life. And what about the excuse of boys will be boys if they've done something bold or naughty as children? Boys are literally told from a young age that they can be as disrespectful as they like and get away with it because of their gender. It is super, super harmful to put these ideas in children's minds during their formative years, as they will hold on to these views because it's all they've been taught and surrounded by. Telling women they must be respectable is telling us we must be worthy of respect. But who gets to decide whether we're worthy or not? By making respectability a goal for women to achieve, you're limiting our free speech, not allowing us to explore avenues because we've been told not to have opinions on certain matters because it's not respectable, taught not to use profanity or be too comfortable with our sexuality. The issue becomes clear when women are either ashamed for not being respectable enough with their sexuality and labelled a slut, or being too respectable with their sexuality and labelled a prude. So basically, you're telling women to be respectable, but not too respectable. Where does the double standard end? The fact that it's acceptable for men to violently campaign for what they believe in is further proof of this double standard. Take the Irish Free State campaign in the early 20th century, even the actions of the IRA up until the 90s. If these campaigns can be disrespectful in achieving their goals, then why can't we? Why is it acceptable for a predominantly male-driven movement to be disrespectful and not acceptable for a female-led campaign? I fully propose a Repeal campaign to reject respectability. As I said earlier, rejecting respectability makes noise, and that in itself brings attention to the cause. Rejecting respectability fights the patriarchal expectations that I've mentioned in the first half of my speech. This lack of respectability is effective in any campaign because it demands people's attention. By breaking the status quo and rebelling against established infrastructures, arguments are considered and discourse is had. However, I feel like I can't really stand here and preach to you about the Repeal campaign and why I'm so passionate about it, without telling you how I came to the conclusion that this is something I truly care about, and why I decided I'm pro-choice over pro-life. Up until a little over a year ago, I was definitely on the fence about which side to take. As a wide-eyed fresher, I was under-educated on the issue. Abortion was never a topic that was discussed, let alone mentioned throughout secondary school. It was something I rarely heard about and was never talked about. Before really exploring the topic of abortion, I had never understood why someone would need to avail of abortion. Coming from a middle-class South Dublin family, I never understood how bringing a child into the world could be a burden financially or even emotionally. I had never considered that many people cannot financially and emotionally support a child, and that they need to have the choice in what they think is right for them in their own circumstances. The Repeal campaign is all about choice. With achieving a repeal of the 8th Amendment, women are given the choice that they know would suit them best. It took a lot of research into Irish laws on abortion to conclude that I identify as pro-choice. I spent my entire first term at Trinity attending panel discussions and debates, reading articles and cases on the topic so that I could hear both sides and form my own views on the topic. I'm so glad I did this, and I definitely encourage any freshers here or anyone who feels they want to know more to definitely attend more of these events around the topic of abortion. But the main reason I was so interested in educating myself on the movement was, as often is, a personal experience. A few weeks before I was about to sit my leaving cert, I went out to town to celebrate a friend's 18th. Maybe it was excitement of being out in town so close to exams, or the fear of not knowing what any of us would be doing or where any of us would be in 3 months' time, but we all drank a lot. One of my close friends at the time, whom I now consider my best friend, opened up to me about her experience with abortion. She told me she had something to tell me and that she knew I'd understand. As she bawled her way through the story and used the words reckless, slut, stupid, careless, scared, not ready, I couldn't help but think of how strong she was to go through such an ordeal, where she was forced to travel abroad at such a young age, and how our state had failed my best friend and still continue to fail 12 women a day. My best friend, who hails from a working class family, who has family in England, at age 16 travelled to the UK to terminate her pregnancy, with her mum's support. I will never know what she went through, the feelings she felt, the secrets she kept and still keeps to this day. But being completely honest, when she told me, although I didn't let it show, I was shocked and a little heartbroken and surprisingly a little angry at her. But why did I have the right to be? Her choice literally does not affect me at all, in the same way it doesn't affect anyone telling women they can't make this choice. A choice that is so important, that literally shapes their future. A choice women deserve. Like, it's so ridiculous that the 8th Amendment is still in place when it's so outdated. Just look at how much our country has grown since 1983. We are now a state focused on equality, but still have a government who refuse to give the women of Ireland a basic human right. The state were not respectful to my best friend, nor are they respectful to the 12 women a day who are forced to travel abroad or illegally obtain abortion pills. I just get so annoyed about the whole thing, because for me it comes down to choice. A person who is capable of being pregnant clearly knows what's best for their body and for their mind. Like, for me, it's this idea that the state have, that we are incapable of making a life-changing decision that is extremely circumstantial, and this really gets to me. With repealing, it's giving women a choice. A choice my friends should have been given. If women want an abortion, they can get one. If they don't want one, then they can choose not to. It's so simple. Yeah, okay, so also I kind of looked into this a little, and I think there's proof that rejecting respectability has progressed this campaign. Like the girls from Unreal Issues, who are members of the coalition with which Alba leads, Andrea and Michelle, these are two sisters who set up Tropical Pocketful, the nail bar that I'm sure there's people here who go to that. They've become amazing educators, providing a super informative outlook on how abortion in Ireland, on how outlook on abortion in Ireland, and they do it in really simple terms. So people who wouldn't consider themselves involved in politics can kind of learn about it. Andrea has often talked about how, upon first getting involved with the campaign, she didn't feel that she was intelligent enough or had the intellectual capacity to grasp what the political sphere was about. So after discovering what the campaign was for herself, she now aims to educate people who are in the same position she was in. And in their words, they state, the Unreal Issues are all about taking some of those issues that all us Huns should be knowing and caring about and making it a bit less boring and wompy. Unreal Issues have rejected respectability in the way they educate. They completely reject respectability and tell it like it is. With their well-known logo, it's the middle finger up in the middle. Of course, it's well manicured because they're male. It can't be denied that the image demands attention and intrigues anyone who sees it. These gals are icons, idols, influencers, teachers who reject respectability and get their point across. And I would definitely recommend hearing them speak if you get a chance. Also, just to finish, please come to the March for Choice this Saturday. In Front Square before we head over, so come and you'll find some friendly faces and it'll be great.
We thank Katie for her fine words, and next up we have the Deputy Chairperson of the Pro-Life Campaign, Cora Sherlock.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by saying at the start of my speech that I don't want any of you to believe anything that I say this evening. I know for some of you that would be easier than others, but what I want to do is extend that to the proposition and say that what you really should do is check everything that you hear this evening out for yourselves, because this is one of the most important issues that we are going to discuss as a society, and the least you owe to yourself is to check the facts out. So if I say that human rights are being violated worldwide because of abortion, don't take my word for it. What I would suggest is that you go and read the Confidential Inquiry into Maternal and Child Health, 2007. Because what you'll find there, in 1 year alone in the UK, 66 babies survived the abortion procedure. And because they were intended to be aborted, they didn't qualify for medical care, they didn't qualify for any care, and they were simply left to die alone. Don't take my word for it, check it out. But bear in mind when you're reading that these are human beings, these are babies. Their heart started to beat at 3 weeks. At 6 weeks they had eyelids, a nose, they had a mouth, a tongue. At 8 weeks they had organs. These are not a choice, these are a baby. And also, when those babies survived, 1 out of every 60 babies survived for 4 hours, and 50 of those babies survived for between 1 minute and 10 hours. 10 hours surviving on your own. Now, the debate this evening is about respectability. And I have to say, I agree with Alba in the sense that I don't really care that much about respectability. Because to me, it speaks of a very man-made issue. Respectability. What does it really mean? After all, one person's respectability is another person's debauchery, and vice versa, and I think that's the way things should be. But when we're talking about the abortion debate, the first part of that word is important. Respect. And what I would say is that when it comes to the Repeal campaign, they will never be able to meet that requirement, because they have given up on respect for human life itself. So there are 2 aspects to this debate. The first one is
perhaps surface. It talks about placards, the words we use to fight this debate amongst ourselves and how we talk about it. And the second part is respect for human life itself. Perhaps just to talk about the first part initially, it's maybe timely that we are here this evening discussing respectability on a night when 3 women who tried to talk about their experiences of the abortion issue were unable to do so in the hotels that they tried to gather in Dublin. This, as some of you may be aware, there is a group called Unbroken Ireland. These are 3 women who were affected by rape. 2 of them were raped and continued with their pregnancy, and 1 of them was herself conceived through rape. They had planned to have a meeting in a hotel in Dublin, and because certain people didn't want to hear their story, they contacted the hotel, and I don't know, but ultimately the hotel cancelled the meeting. It moved to a second hotel, the same thing happened. And in this evening's Irish Times, there was or is it the Irish Independent? I think it's the Irish Independent. There is an image of the poster, and what the poster says, it's a picture of one of the women, and it says, "I was conceived in rape, I'm still a human being." So we're talking about debating an issue. We talked already about hearing facts and hearing about what this is all about. And yet these are 3 women who came to tell their story. And I think it's quite an important aspect of the debate. No, thank you. It's quite an important aspect of the debate, but for some reason they're not being given a chance to hear their story. I think that's very important, and I don't think that it speaks to much respect from the people who objected so vociferously. I would also agree that the debate in Ireland at the moment is a class issue. It is a class issue, because if we introduce abortion, we repeal the 8th Amendment, what we will be doing is creating an Ireland of second-class citizens. All of us here will be first-class citizens, so we're okay. But if you're in the room, if you have a disability, if you have any reason that might class you as an unwanted child, that horrible phrase, then you're a second-class citizen, because you don't receive the full protection that we give to everybody else. And let's not fool ourselves into thinking that we can create some kind of restrictive abortion, because it hasn't happened in any other country of the world. Despite the safeguards that they were promised in the UK when they introduced abortion in 1967, today in the UK, 1 in every 5 pregnancies ends in abortion. Just think of 5 people that you know in your life. Which one of them should you do about? Because that's how that statistic breaks down. And it's a real statistic. It's not a fact that the pro-life campaign, no thank you, it's not a fact that the pro-life campaign has made up, despite what we've heard this evening from some of the speakers. Before you want? Yes?
Where is the state support for all the children who are born into severe financial situations?
There is a suggestion that pro-life supporters don't care about people when they're born. I can assure you that the people that I work with in the pro-life campaign are out actively working with those kind of people. I just wish that we could have the foresight to see that if you don't allow a person to be born, then you're not going to allow them to go to college so they can get their fees. You're not going to support them to get accommodation, to get homes. The right to life is a fundamental right without which all other rights are meaningless. Now, what I would like to suggest is that you look abroad and see the inhumanity of abortion, what it's causing in other countries. Let's look to San Francisco in 2015, where abortionists held a national abortion conference. And this is when leading abortionists were filmed talking about how, in order to protect the pro-choice movement, they feel under pressure not to disclose details of their profession. But when they're together and everybody do the same thing, they feel a bit more free and easy to talk about it. And these are some of the things they talk about. They talk about the violence of abortion. They talk about how heads get stuck. They talk about how it feels to inflict pain deliberately. One person said that how she copes is to focus on the baby fetus, to have reverence for something that was once alive but now is not. One person mentioned that when she was carrying out an abortion, an eyeball fell onto her lap. And everybody laughed because they said that was a sign that the abortion was going well. Now I think that we would find comments like that very distressing. And I don't want to come into this chamber this evening with this lesson, but I really feel that in the abortion debate in Ireland at this moment in our history, we are not talking about the reality of what on the point means. No, thank you. Repeal the 8th would provide us with our very own abortion conference. It would leave us with a situation where our relatives who are doctors, our sisters, our brothers who are nurses, would be participating in that kind of procedure. No, thank you. Would be going to conferences like that where they talk about those procedures. Abortion corrupts the medical procedure, the medical profession. It tells doctors that instead of working and training to save lives, they should now be working and training to end lives. I don't want to know. I believe that abortion is very anti-woman. People, object sometimes when I say that, but it's telling that we don't hear people on the pro-choice side of the argument talking about a woman who bled to death in the back of a taxi after an abortion in a Mary-Stokes film. Now, thank you. This woman, sorry, not just one. Very tragically, that woman died during the furore that was created during the tragic death of Savita Halpernova. Her death was on the headlines in Ireland for maybe 4 hours before it was. I don't understand why that woman who died as a direct result of an abortion didn't deserve the respect, like her life didn't deserve the respect for us to talk about it. And yet Savita, who very tragically died, but did not die as a result of the lack of abortion. These are the facts. If you don't like the facts, then you shouldn't be part of this debate. Don't march on Saturday in denial of the facts. Go and read the 3 official reports into Savita's death: the coroner's report, the HSE report, and the Repeal report. And they will all tell you that what I'm saying is correct. If it was not true, I would not stand here and say it. I am not a liar. I'm not interested in spreading lies. I'm interested in debating the abortion issue. And you can call it a shame, but it is a fact. I would also like to say that the pro-choice campaign speaks up and claims to represent women who travel for abortions. They don't represent everyone who travels for abortions. I have many friends who feel completely castigated by the pro-choice movement in this country. They have travelled for abortions, and they are not acknowledged. They are not participating in the debate because they are not welcomed into the debate. When the group Women Hurt, this is a group of women who had abortions and who wanted to talk about their experiences, how they grieved the loss of their child, and we'll finish on this, how they grieved the loss of the child that could have been in their life. They started a support group back in 2012 to support other women. The National Women's Council of Ireland described their actions as harsh and cruel. I find that very anti-women and I find it very upsetting. I will finish now. I would just encourage you all to think for yourselves, to check out the facts, to check everything that I have said, and in the words of the late, great Christopher Hitchens, to take the risk of thinking for yourself, because much more happiness, truth, beauty, and wisdom will come to you that way. Thank you very much.
We thank Cora for her fine speech. And last, on the proposition side, we have Claire O'Neill. Here.
Ladies and gentlemen, respectability is the current status quo. We want to reject the current status quo, not only because it fosters inequality between men and women on an obvious level, but also because on a more nuanced level, the status quo fosters inequality between the spectrum of people who can get pregnant. Because the reality of unplanned pregnancy does not simply differentiate between women and men. It is not just inequality on this axis. It is also inequality between different people who can get pregnant. And who are these people? When, people who don't have the means or the money to travel for an abortion can get pregnant.
People who cannot leave the country due to their visa status can get pregnant. Trans people can get pregnant. This is not an exhaustive list. Respectability does not give us the means to challenge this nuanced inequality in any meaningful way. It is respectable not to talk about these things. It is respectable to remain silent on these inequalities which are so rarely discussed, but are such gross inequalities that it is justifiable to rectify them by all means at our disposal. Rather than engaging in constructive discussion of the issue of the Eighth Amendment, the concept of respectability becomes a yardstick by which the repeal campaign will never measure up, and a stick that is used to beat our attempts to challenge an oppressive status quo. The arbitrary concept of respectability is used to blacken our aims, to paint us in a negative light, and to put words into our mouth, like Cora just gave us an example of, using an arbitrary conversation between one group of people, and as she just gave us, and applying that to the entire repeal movement in Ireland. We are the subversive side, yes. We are the side who want to upend the status quo. But what value is there in preserving a status quo that fosters an unequal Ireland? The repeal campaign calls for a fairer Ireland, an Ireland where a person who finds themselves pregnant, be it as a result of an unwanted sexual encounter, or a much yearned for pregnancy which is found heartbreakingly to be non-viable, or as a result of failed contraception or any one of a number of instances, that person can make the choice for themselves whether they can continue their pregnancy. An Ireland where we trust our mothers, our wives, our sisters, our friends, and ourselves enough to allow that choice to be left to the pregnant person. The people who oppose our movement harbour a fundamental mistrust of women. If we trust women, we understand exactly why it is the owner of the womb, and not church or state, that can and should make decisions regarding our own bodies. Our opponents police our tone, they criticise our jumpers, they paint over our murals, they frame us as wanting to be trendy, rather than understanding that wanting to correct a human rights abuse in our own country is a fundamental belief rather than some passing fad. Pander to an abstract aim of respectability erases voices that are outside what is deemed socially acceptable, and it is for these most vulnerable voices that we must shout the loudest. Niamh, I agreed with your speech, but I think it is not enough to simply win a legislative change if we do repeal the Eighth Amendment, fingers crossed. We must bring about a sea change in Irish society. It is a political campaign, yes, but it is also a social one. Let us be very clear, the repeal campaign versus the status quo is not fighting like with like. When you challenge an oppressive and stagnant state of affairs, it is necessarily not respectable to do that. Pro-life groups accuse the repeal movement of imposing one viewpoint upon everyone and shouting down any opponents, but this simply does not hold water. A grassroots repeal movement versus the combined might of the Catholic Church, the Irish state, and the Irish Constitution is not a level playing field. The moderate view, no thank you, is the non-prescriptive view. It is choice. It is understanding that each individual person who becomes pregnant is best placed to make the decision for themselves about whether to continue that pregnancy. It is understanding that a constitution, which includes an article that states that the woman's place is in the home, should not be held up as the ultimate authority on whether or not we should trust women with our own bodies. The moderate view is the outrage and the heartbreak that we felt in 1984 when a 15-year-old schoolgirl died giving birth in a grotto, and it is the outrage and the heartbreak that we feel again in 2017 when a pregnant young girl deemed suicidal by a psychiatrist was sectioned rather than being provided with an abortion. And Cora, I invite you to reflect on these examples while you accuse the repeal campaign of giving up on humanity. If we strive for social acceptability, we necessarily water down our aims, because it is not enough for there to simply be looser regulation around obtaining abortions. There needs to be a removal of the shame surrounding abortion, and that demands a change in how we view women and an overhaul of the punitive attitude towards female sexuality that Ireland retains as a hangover from a past dominated by Catholic dogma. Access to abortion is a fundamental human right. The day when we are expected to sit quietly and ask politely for our rights is behind us. Put quite simply, the stakes are too high. Taking the respectability argument at its best, it is still redundant. redundant because respectability necessitates social acceptability, and respectability does not challenge the inequalities that the Repeal campaign are striving every day to fight. I'm so proud to propose.
We can thank Claire for her fine speech, and to close the case for the opposition, we have the Irish Times Deputy Features Editor and founder of the women's podcast, Roisin Ingle.
Hi everybody. Happy Safe International Abortion Day. I just want to say, first of all, I am a debater, because you'll get to see that very quickly. I'm just one of the 70,000 women who have had to travel for an abortion since 1980, and I speak from that place. And I want to say, first of all, that I'm actually quite happy to be on the same side as Cora for once. Very nice. I'm going to sort of bask in this moment, because it's probably unlikely to happen again, let's face it. I want to address you directly, Cora, in a very respectable, I hope, fashion, because I want to say to you that while I do disagree strongly with a lot of what you say and with where you're coming from on this issue, I do truly respect the fact that the beliefs that you have are really deeply held and sincere. And I wanted to say that at the beginning of this, because I think it's important in the context of this very good motion. I never would expect you to change your mind about this issue. And I never, for example, if I get asked to go on a radio show to argue this stuff with you, I say no all the time. Because I see from the sincerity of your position that it would be foolish of me to argue with you about this deeply held beliefs that you have. Both of us will be wasting our time, and I really don't believe that either of us will be helping our cause that we so passionately believe in. Because these programs ask us on to these shows because they want us to be competitors and they want to pit us against each other. It's almost like, you know, Mayweather versus McGregor, or like George Hook versus the whole of womankind. Because I don't think it's helpful to the cause, as I said, and I only want to do things to help, and that's why I'm here actually, because I think this motion is a very useful conversation. So thank you very much for inviting me, and thanks for coming up with something very interesting to talk about, because I think it's a conversation we're all going to be having over the next while, so thank you. I believe and respect your beliefs, Cora, and I defend your right to hold them. I know you're not going to change your mind, I'm not going to change mine either. But the right thing here, I think, as we face into the referendum, is we need to politely agree to disagree. I think you and I, and you and people on these very, very, we'll take a colour maybe, I'm not extreme, I'm a little brain, but we need to kind of agree to politely disagree. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to leave it there. Except I do want to say one little thing that I will say. I just sort of think that wasn't the most respectable kind of, but I know why you brought it up. But anyway. So people like Cora, people in the pro-life campaign, who are firmly anti-choice and they're not going to change their minds. They're not the people that we're going to reach. I mean, that's the truth. But that's what I want to talk about tonight. So I want to talk about people that we might be able to reach, which has been mentioned here tonight a bit. There are people that I meet all the time, and there are people who they think they're anti-choice, but when they're faced with human scenarios that they haven't kind of thought of, they understand, or there's sort of a chink where they think their stance might change. There's people who say, oh, I just don't like the idea of abortion, but when you ask them, do they think women should give birth to babies that they don't want or that they can't cope with, they realise in a lot of cases that they have a lot more thinking about the issue to do. And there are people there, because we're only just starting to talk about this, we have to remember that. We have to give people a lot of leeway, because we have been in a very closed society where we've had one narrative foisted onto us, and I do feel compassion for people because of that. And I feel compassion for myself because of that, because I'm on a complete learning journey too, and I'm not as long along the way that I would like to be, and I'm learning all the time because of the country that I've grown up in. But there's people out there who don't know yet that the 8th Amendment affects the rights of every pregnant person, whether the pregnancy is a crisis one or whether it's a much wanted one. And there are lots and lots of people like this who we need to reach, or we can try to reach. who haven't been used to the subject, as I said. So I'm here arguing that the Repeal the Age movement should not abandon respectability, and that by not abandoning respectability, I believe we have a much better chance of reaching those people who are actually reachable. Because I was trying to be a SWAT that was from Trinity, and I didn't actually get into Trinity, so this is the closest I ever. So I went to Wikipedia. And I looked at respectability politics, and it said there are attempts by marginalised groups to police their own members and show their social values as being continuous and compatible with mainstream values, rather than challenging the mainstream for what they see as its failure to accept difference. And the thing is, as I see it, the very heart and soul of the Repeal the Age movement is completely and utterly compatible with mainstream values. So the idea that we have to abandon respectability to succeed in our aim of providing choice to women and girls is just not one I can agree with. I'm looking at Alva here of the Coalition to Repeal the Eighth Amendment, and I see her as the epitome of respectability. We are. I see that as grace and respectability. It oozes out of her. And I see that we're on different sides, but I know you'll agree with much of what I say at the same time, Alva. The mainstream values at the core of the campaign to Repeal the Eighth Amendment are those of care and love and compassion and truth and dignity. And these are hardly radical or challenging concepts to mainstream society. We're asking for women to be given the chance to control their own destinies, to live the lives that they want to have according to their own personal needs. And we don't need to abandon respectability to communicate our compassionate core message, which is that if we are to treat people with decency and dignity and respect, then that women and families, trans men and young girls, they must be free to make up their own minds about their reproductive lives, and they must have access to the safe and legal services that they need. And I thought long and hard about which side of this motion to stand on, because tone policing, basically. And it's a horrible thing to tone police people, and it's happened to me in the past, and I don't like it, and I hope that nothing I say here smacks of that, but maybe some of it will, and I'm sorry for that. It's not something I want to engage in. People who are on the pro side, especially those of us who travel, as I have, and probably some of you here in this room have as well, we're very angry because of that, and we're hurting very deeply. And I know from personal experience how deeply hurtful it is to know that your own country abandons you when you're in dire need of help and support and health care. And I understand how angry you get. I mean, I was there the other night crying into my pillow, but that's not the first time, it won't be the last. I get really upset and I get really angry, and that happens to me. And, you know, it's very difficult to keep your emotions in check. And I'm sure that those proposing the motion will argue that emotions shouldn't have to be kept in check. And I do agree to a certain point. But I'm thinking of if I'm going out knocking on doors and the referendum is called, and I'm knocking on the door, there's an 8-year-old woman who answers it. You know what I mean? I do feel it's not useful for us to abandon respectability in that case. I'm going to speak to that woman in a way that I feel she'll be able to hear me and at least be able to understand what I'm trying to say. And my own mother has been very helpful in this. She's 78. She has spoken before about how she had an illegal, unsafe abortion, and as millions and millions of women around the world are dying every year because they don't have access to safe services. And I think she's speaking wisely when she says that we should argue our points with love, and we must remember that people need education and they need help, and probably we don't need to be hectored about this, because when you're in that position of vulnerability and you're not quite sure and you're not totally educated, being hectored is kind of the last thing you need. And I do have to say I agree with her. And also I just try to find other outlets to express all that emotion. Like I was out last night with some friends who totally agree with me, which is really nice to be out. I can get rant and rave and I can get upset, and I do find an outlet for that. But I just think in terms of, as Neil said earlier, in terms of the strategic nature of this campaign, we need to rein that in a little bit. I'm talking about myself, I'm not talking to anyone else. So I basically want to communicate in this referendum and in this subject with clarity and with truth. And it's not that I want to take out the emotion, or I don't want to become so bland that the message gets lost, but it does mean trying to appeal to people where they are. And whether we like it or not, a lot of people in this country are in a place people call it the middle grounders. I call it maybe that mainstream. And they're there, and that's where they are. So I want to look at how we could win this. I think we'll win by remaining polite in the face of appalling behaviour that we get subjected to. I mean, people have called me baby murder, that's fine, you know. Like, they do that, but I don't need to react to them, and I try not to react to them. And there's people who want to harass women at airports who need to go and get, you know, have abortions, and I just think that's despicable. And again, I just think there's a certain amount of turning of the cheek that I know I'm going to have to do. But I'm really proud to belong to this movement, because I see everywhere all the time women and men that I know in this movement who are able to retain complete respectability in the face of this. When I go marching on Saturday, I'm going to this movement to be a loving, happy, joyous, compassionate, safe space to be in. I don't go in and feeling like, oh, it's going to be really not respectful. That's not what's going to happen there. Then the truth is that for so long, you know, women in Ireland, north and south, were afraid to tell the stories of our real lives as women. And the fact that is, the real truth for women, is that sometimes we get pregnant, you know, and we don't want to be pregnant. And that is just a reality. Sometimes we can't carry through with pregnancies, and they're for tragic and heartbreaking reasons. And we need help, and we need help. Sorry, I just have a little bit more. I've finally all the amazingly respectable ways that I see the 8th Amendment campaign, or the Repeal 8th Amendment campaign. I was going to say things about the not-at-home installation of any sort of commodity, which is so respectable. I feel like Rihanna Carter is respectful. The Exile Project, where all these women get their photographs taken and told their stories and are so respectable. At the moment, the #1 and 2 book in the bestseller list in Ireland are 2 books, one called The Break by Marion Keyes and another one called Oh My God, What It Be Ashley. So it's very fun books. And they both have really compassionate, full of empathy stories that are to do with this issue too. And I think it's amazing that we're talking about these things now. And I'm going to skip loads of what I said because I know this is now 11 minutes, sorry about more. But basically, I'll just finish up with the last bit. It's good I've done. We're doing this because we're passionate about the rights of women to determine their own lives and their own futures. We're doing it for ourselves, for the women who suffered in the Ireland of the past, for our daughters, our sisters, our nieces, and all the women and girls to come, especially those who are disadvantaged. It's about choice, it's about freedom, it's about equality, it's about respecting ourselves and respecting others, it's about respecting the men in our lives too, and it's really important. The Repeal the 8th movement is respectability in action. Respectability is our secret weapon. It's at the heart of everything we do. We should not abandon it, and we will not abandon it, and we shall overcome. Thank you very much.
Thanks to Roisin for her remarks, and indeed everyone for what was an excellent debate. Just a couple of words before we go. First of all, thanks to TCSU for working with this as part of Empowerment Week, and particular thanks to the Irish Times for their coverage of this debate as part of the Women's Podcast. I'm going to call a vote on this motion, so I'm going to ask all those in favour of the motion to please say aye, and all those against to say nay. A reminder that the motion is this House believes the repeal campaign should reject respectability. So can all those in favour please say aye? Aye! And all those against? Nay! I think we have to do a show of hands on that one. I can't call it. So all those in favour, raise your hand there now.
Have a quick go with the nays.
Okay, and all those against? Okay, I think the ayes have it. Just a reminder to fill out your oratory returns as well, and a couple of announcements from us in the Phil. So, if you enjoyed this debating, we have loads of different debates going on in the Phil. So, for anyone who's in their first year of college debating, Maeve here is running the Maidens competition, and she's still taking sign-ups next door at our reception. So, talk to Maeve about that. And then, secondly, Harry over here is running our competitive debating. So, there's a UCD Novice and the UCD Law IV coming up in the next 2 weeks, and sign-up is still available for that. Next week's debate at the Phil is This House would Welcome a United Ireland, and you can sign up on Facebook, over our email, or on the notice board outside. And then finally, there's a pizza evening on Monday with PwC. If you want to learn about graduate opportunities, I'd encourage you all to go to that. And we're also, after the social, there's an event on the Academy, so if anyone feels like going out, that's on too. So without any further ado, I'll invite you all next door, and I call this meeting adjourned. It's great, it's great. Thank you very much.
It's a really good team.
So like it has the right nuance.
And I'm very glad that the speakers are being right.
Yeah.
Oh, you fucking got this wrong. What?
You crossing the comedy and Taylor.
You have to have a debate, you know? You have to appreciate a bit of nuance, you know? A bit of rawness. Yeah, it's just, which is that I'm not a liar. You are a liar.